not know, our chair could not be with us this evening. He has a prior obligation, which.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Spit it out, Tim.
Which I will leave right.
Game 7.
Oh.
That would be these prior obligations.
Off the record.
That was.
Then they better win.
That's exactly right. And then also our vice chair, Tracy, was at a conference today, so she won't be joining us. So I'm just going to quickly just start the meeting as we do have quorum and then turn it over to the architecture team. But with that said, I'll officially call for the roll. So Laurie Wilshire.
Here.
Judy Carlson.
Here.
Lindsay Rinaldi.
Here.
Marianne Malizi Golia is not here yet.
I think she's intending.
That's my understanding. Mary Lou Blaisdell.
Here.
Trish Clee.
Here.
Tracy Hall is not with us. Rich Landon is not with us. Mayor Jim Donchis.
Here.
And Brandon Laws.
Here.
And then finally, via phone, not counting towards quorum, but with us is Mark Thayer. Correct, Mark? Can you hear us?
I'm way over there.
And Mark, just for the room's edification, not only can you hear us, is there anyone else with you that can hear this conversation this evening?
No.
Excellent, thank you. With that being said, we have 7 people in attendance, 1 participating via remote participation. That is of 8. We do have quorum. So this evening, we're going to be having an update from the architect and the design team relative to the work that's transpired over the last month or so. But before we get to that, I wanted to just quickly take an opportunity to remind folks of the conversation we had about 2 weeks ago, or thereabouts, relative to, and I think this is how we framed it last time, is how risk adverse are we? And I say that, can you bring up the Excel spreadsheet?
Sure can.
So I'm just gonna quickly go through some of these numbers in greater detail, and we can have a conversation. The reason why I wanted to do this is to just reorientate you to how the numbers are trending, and I want you to keep them in the back of your mind. Can you go to sources of funds? Sources of funds, next sheet.
Yeah.
So if you recall, we talked about a couple weeks ago, bond financing, full authorization at $15.5 million. New market tax credit at the highest would be 5.2, capital campaign, the private fundraising at 2.5. That brought us a tick over 23 million. That's if everything aligned correctly. Budgeting purposes wise, I've updated this since we've last chatted, but this is just, again, for you to keep in the back of your mind. We were talking about 15 million, 4.2, 2 million. Depending on how we break these numbers down, you're looking at a $19.2 million project if you count some sources, $17 million project if you count some sources, and if you count everything, it's a $23.2 million project. So again, keep those numbers in the back of your mind. Can you go to the first slide? So, can you bring it down to like 80%?
Sure can.
Or maybe not.
Sure.
All right. So this is the first time you've seen this Excel spreadsheet. This is how we're trending the costs. This is a working document. It's draft. Still needs to, a lot of this still needs to be populated, finalized, but these are good, I would say, guesstimates right now that kind of just give us an idea of how things are trending. So some of the numbers we know, we bought the building for $2 million. We know that there's not going to be any finance costs. We know that there's not any legal costs. We know the builder's risk insurance is going to be carried in the construction budget. We have the pre-design numbers all populated. We have the architecture and engineering fees in there. We have the additional design and professional services, other soft costs in there. I'm carrying the endowment fund at 1.2 still, because that was the conversation we had 2 weeks ago. But as this conversation evolves tonight, I want you to keep that in the back of your mind, that we are carrying it right now at 1.2. We have construction costs, so when the design team gets into their conversation about the building. The number that's being reflective right here is construction costs and markup at $15 million. That is the schematic design adjusted, the one we discussed with the design team a few weeks back. That has basically at the high level, one elevator, no outdoor terrace, basement is just really gallery space. So those are some of the adjustments that were made from that, from what we were talking about originally, that brought the schematic design revised down to that $15 million figure. Other testing, audio visual, we're carrying at 1.6. Can you scroll down? FF&E is 150,000. We're carrying signage at $100,000. Something we should discuss. Digital signing. That's digital exterior signing at $100,000. We're carrying some utility costs, which are less than $10,000. We're carrying a contingency of $1 million, and then an estimating contingency of $200,000 that we know will get reprogrammed into the construction budget at some point, leaving, so under that schematic design that we were talking about, a total project of 23.1. Okay, so 23.1 million. Scroll down. So sources of funds, again, I adjusted this a little bit from 2 weeks ago. I'm taking every single dollar of the bond authorization at 15.5. Tax credits, I'm modeling still at 4.2. If we take every single dollar of the capital campaign, you're looking at 22.2 million. That does not include the off-site improvements that we discussed at about $1 million. Okay, that needs to be separately voted on. That would bring us to 23.2, which is, so we are just shy by about $1 million of making that work, because this 23 million doesn't have that $1 million of off-site improvements into it. So if we were to add those off-site streetscaping improvements into it, that would be $24 million. Okay? If we were to just count on the capital campaign raising only $1 million, you're looking at 22.2 million. And that's if we were being really, really conservative.
Why do we have to put the 1 million for off-site into this? Isn't that something that has to be done anyway?
For this project, it doesn't have to be done. For this project, we could do the project. I think all of us would recommend to you to do it. It would create a better experience. But I've discussed this with Harvey and Carl. We could do the project in theory without doing that $1 million streetscaping. So that's something to keep in the back of your mind. So tonight you're gonna hear 2 different design versions that will help bring this project down a little bit if you want to go in that direction, but it's gonna mean some major trade-offs. So I wanted to have that orientation for you as you're hearing the conversation this evening. I don't want to spend a lot of time, but yeah.
I just, how vague is our understanding of the capital campaign committees, or how much money they're gonna raise? I mean, I think at this point.
I would think Betsy McNamara, the fundraising consultant, will tell you that she is confident 2.5 million will be raised.
Okay.
I just caution you that it's a timing issue as to when all that money comes in, and it becomes a cash flow issue, and really when we want to enter into a guaranteed maximum price. Because once we enter into that contract, we need those monies to show up. So again, it goes back to that conversation we had 2 weeks ago of how risk adverse are we? What are we really wanting to do? When do we want to set up the timeline? Tonight's conversation doesn't need to get that far down into the weeds. Really what I would like to accomplish tonight is just giving clear direction to the design team as to the path that you'd like them to pursue for the 2 different designs that you're gonna hear about. Okay? Good? All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. So we can keep circling back to that information. Last time we talked to, we narrowed option 1, what we're now calling option 1, down to 13.5 million for the basic construction dollars. The 15 that Tim is indicating is inclusive of a range of construction manager costs. We decoupled those for discussion purposes because those will go up and down with the construction costs going up and down. So for example, option 2 that we're going to be showing you, when we left you last time, we said we had $1 million overage that we would find a path to addressing. We have done that. And we do have a second option that is just a touch over the 12.5. The CM costs associated with that would actually drop to somewhere just under 1.3. So they fluctuate with the construction dollars. So what we're talking about tonight are what got us there and whether those potential changes to the Performing Arts Center are worth the savings versus the risks of proceeding at a higher cost. Does that make sense? Everybody we sort of bolted right into that. So there you can see apples to apples. Before we started making design changes, we were at 18. We recommended at that point a series of changes, the total about 1.3. In reductions, we talked about the outside street work and utility costs as adding up to $1 million. We talked about reallocating the telescopic and fixed seating from the construction budget into the AVIT theatrical equipment budget. So that's now been done. It's reflected in the budget that Tim went through. In version 2, where our starting point is 15.8, less, again, and this is purely for comparison, say the general conditions, CM contingencies and pre-construction fees, just under 1.4. There is a second elevator shown in option 2. This is deducting that, so it would again, apples to apples, one elevator to one elevator. The design revisions are all rolled in. The outside funds and the seating are carried at the same thing. Because this revision triggers upgrading the SURF's roof for snow drifts, that is actually included in the base number at this point. And it's about $250,000 in upgrades to that roof that are rolled in. The vast majority of the savings, if you're wanting to compare 1 to 2, are in option 1. The stage and fly area